Welcome to Pixels to Politics. I'm Bray, joined tonight by Dougie. Our special guest is Carson, behavioral health technician at a rehab center. He'll, sh- he'll share insights into addiction treatment, the challenges and rewards of his role, and the latest trends in rehab therapy. Join us for an enlightening discussion on this critical issue. Carson, what's going on?
Well, thank you guys for having me.
Of course, Doug, how are you doing?
I'm good. It's coffee time. So,
Coffee time. Do they allow patients to
Water
drink
time.
coffee over there?
Yes, they do. So we we most of the time we buy them coffee and have at housing. We offer coffee. A lot of times clients like to bring their own coffee because they like certain brands, or for instance they like a certain kind of creamer. But at our clinicals side, where we offer group therapy and individual therapy sessions, there is coffee there as well. So yes.
Cool. Now, is it like a live-in facility? Like, do they live there? Or do they come in from? Is it like?
So we offer PHP, so it is partial hospitalization, but the setting is sober living. So it's kind of it's not it's a little bit more laid back than per se um a full on lockdown kind of facility where there is staff on duty 24/7, security 24/7, stuff like that. Kind of what we offer here is a little bit more relaxed, have a client get used to quote unquote normal life. We do let them go to the gym. We take them to the pharmacy, things that they're able to get out of the house. If they were in a more lockdown facility, they would not be allowed to leave. So you kind of get more freedom, but with that freedom comes big responsibilities, and a lot of times people can't handle that.
For sure, for sure. And what's the most common type of issue that you treat over there? Like, what's the most common, the one you see the most?
Probably opiate use disorder or alcohol use disorder. But we do offer a dual diagnosis. So I would say the average client comes in with schizophrenia, and they're either addicted to alcohol or opiates.
mm,
Wow. And so, typically, is there like any issues that you usually have on a daily basis, or so for the most part, it's pretty much calm. You don't typically have to get involved with them.
Um,
Uh,
I would say it's generally case by case, morely
mm,
depending on the client per se, their diagnosis with either their mental health or their addiction, whether it's opiate use disorder, alcohol use disorder. But for the most part, we tend to have more problems with the mental health side of things. Clients that come in with schizophrenia, a lot of times they assume or think that things are going on. They have very bad paranoid delusions, right? Sometimes they'll think that something simple, right? Somebody's talking crap about them, and they think something's going on when in reality it's really not, because it's a delusion. And then sometimes there will be more severe cases with them getting violent, as in they'll say something as simple as, "Oh, I got bullets for days." Just they'll hint these weird comments, or not necessarily weird, but these aggressive comments towards people. But I would say the average problem will just be learning how to handle your aggression, having very bad paranoid delusions, and so yeah.
wow.
so
And
where
so,
I'm
yeah, go ahead,
curious,
Doug.
what your role here is exactly. So how do you? Well, I guess what your job is and what does it entail on a day-to-day basis?
A generic a generic way to describe it is that I'm an adult babysitter for addicts and people recovering in mental health. But to go in definition a little bit more, I would say basically making sure nobody is getting high, right? Making sure nobody is bringing in paraphernalia or drug paraphernalia, especially when we're dealing with people who um, are dealing with really bad opiate severe disorders and stuff like that. A little as seeing a needle. Say somebody has diabetes, right? And they see a needle, that little thing can cause them to go out and relapse, right? Um, but to center back to your question, I would say that. Can you repeat the question? Sorry.
Just what your day to day looks
Oh,
like, you
okay.
know?
I get you. Yeah. So for the most part, my shifts run about from 4 p.m. to 12 p.m. Wednesday through Friday, and Wednesday through Friday usually consist of, as soon as I get in, I check to see if anybody has any medication to pick up. So I'll usually hop on a computer. We use a system called Keepoo. I'm not the really biggest fan of it, but I have no choice. But essentially, all I do is I go through everybody's case file, see if they have any medication to pick up, and I'll write it down on a list. Then I'll go pick up medication, and then when I come back, usually we'll take guys to the gym. We'll get some extracurricular activities going on. That way, they don't feel like they're stuck in one place, you know. So we'll get them to the gym, or we'll take them to go get a haircut, or if they want to go get clothes from Ross, you know, we'll go take them shopping. But then when it gets towards about 6 or 7 o'clock, we do meetings daily. At 7 o'clock, we take them to AA meetings, NA meetings. Uh, we usually have a set schedule, but from time to time, we like to add in, you know, different kind of meetings to mix it up. That way, it's not boring and it's not the same stuff. You know, as someone who was in recovery, repetition does get boring very quick, and it leads your mind to wander, and that's not good. But usually after we get back from the meetings, which would be about 8 o'clock, we make sure to give the guys their medication. And their medication usually runs from 8 to 10 p.m. For their night doses, and we make sure they get their medication. And then basically just make sure everybody, you know, is on the same page. Nobody's mad at each other. Making sure, you know, obviously we don't tolerate stealing. You know, if somebody's not in the room, don't talk about them. You know, things that are very important early recovery, because, you know, making your bed, you know, making sure that their rooms are clean, that, you know, they're being uptight with the house and understanding that they live with 12 other people. So there's always going to be a mess here and there. A lot of times there's going to be arguments here and there, you know. I would say it is very random. You know, you never know exactly what's going to happen. You just kind of go with the flow, you know.
Absolutely.
But then come the weekends, on Saturday and Sunday, I work overnight, and usually I just got to make sure none of the guys are leaving the house or running away. And then come 8 in the morning, I leave, so I just got to make sure they take their medicine before I leave. But the weekends are pretty chill compared to the weekdays. Weekdays are, whew, stress now.
Now you mentioned that people sometimes steal things. Have you ever had issues like fairly recently with people stealing?
Yeah, actually yesterday. I can't go into detail on the name or whatever, but
Yeah, yeah,
say subject A, right?
yeah,
He
yeah.
he had met somebody and brung some drug paraphernalia in, and had violated one of our codes, and he decided to leave in the middle of the night, because he was under the influence, and he had came back in the morning thinking that nobody would think he was gone. So when subject A had came back to main housing, we had addressed the situation and basically told him, "Hey, if you we need to talk about a few things, right? Obviously, leaving housing without text is a no."
Yeah.
And then we had talked to him, and he did not like what we had to say at all. He was very defensive. He was trying to make excuses. Anyway, long story short, right before we had told him to pack his bags and get out, he had gathered a few of his housemates' items, such as a telephone, such as clothing, shoes, some food, and he had tried to take it with him. But he had buried it in the backyard, right before he had left. For some reason, all this stuff was found buried in the backyard. And we had checked the cameras, and that's how we found out where the stuff was. Because before he left, the client said, "Hey, their stuff was missing." Um, but he didn't end up taking the stuff. Well, he did take it. He did steal it, but he had buried it in the backyard for him to grab before he had left. But he did not have time to do that, so we were able to retrieve some of the guy's items and bring them back to them.
That's
And
good.
that's just one instance of stealing. I can go on and on.
Wow. Now, is that the most dramatic issue, or has there been like in your mind that there's an issue that pops out as being the craziest?
Um, I would say probably the most dramatic issue. And it was actually right when I first started working. We used to keep certain medication locked up in the cabinet as in controlled substances. So when it came to items such as Adderall or Suboxone, which are very common medicines used in early recovery, we have to keep those in a confined compartment because if clientele were to get their hands on a whole box of Adderall or a whole box of Suboxone, that would not be good. Um, so we had somebody basically raid our medicine cabinet.
Wow.
And yeah, that was probably the worst that I know of. But obviously, there's been petty things like people taking somebody's orange juice or somebody's soda, you know. But I would say probably the most dramatic or drastic thing that has been taken was definitely the medication because medication is the most number one priority at Orlando Treatment Solutions.
And what would you say is the average age of the patients that arrive at your facility?
Um, I would say, it is very hard to really give an average age, just because we offer dual diagnosis. But to give you a definitive answer, I would say anywhere probably from 28 to 35
Hmm,
Okay, so
interesting.
would be
around
like an
our age,
average.
roughly, around
Yeah.
our age. Do you think
Correct.
that's like it? Do you think the reason that these patients come in is like an issue of society or how the country is doing? Do you think it's a reflection of that, or do you think it's more of a reflection of just how just the individuals themselves?
So I have a few opinions on that. Number one, most importantly, is I think the way this country portrays addicts, and people dealing with mental health is that we're the bums of the country. We have nothing going for us. We never have, and we never will. Right. Um, and for instance, the Biden campaign, they have immigrants have multiplied in millions by millions, and a lot of these people or per se aliens are given free insurance, free housing, Medicaid, these things that are very important to the average American. um, and so I do think big reason is the way our country portrays us addicts and us people dealing with mental health. um, because per se 40 years ago there wasn't mental health institutions as much as there was today. And whether that's due to political reasoning, or whether it's due to the way this country portrays us addicts and mental health, I think that's a big reason. I think another big thing is back in like the 80s and 90s, like crack was a big thing, right? Was really a big thing and had hit the market, and there wasn't fentanyl. There wasn't that wasn't a thing, right? It was heroin, crack, meth, cocaine. So I would say a lot of back in the day, a lot of people were given opiates or given benzos willingly. Doctors were giving it out like candy. You didn't really have to have a definitive reason to get the medicine. As long as you were able to get a script written, you'd be able to get the medication. I mean, obviously, our government has taken a big kickback on controlled substances. I do think the price of medications do play into play. Like the price of insulin, right? For people who are diabetic, it is very hard to get medication right now. And let me backtrack a little bit. Adderall and Vyvanse. There's been a shortage since 2020 or 2019, 2020, ever since COVID happened. There's been a shortage on controlled substances. So a lot of people who are prescribed medicine weren't able to get it. So they had to go to the streets to go get that medication. And that played a big downfall, of why people obviously are coming in these rooms. And I would say the biggest thing right now, I would say the biggest oppressing issue right now would be fentanyl. Um, is it is unbelievable how much fentanyl is coming into our country. It is unbelievable how many people I meet on a day-to-day basis who have either met somebody who have overdosed due to fentanyl or somebody who has an addiction due to fentanyl. And I think it is absurd how that is not the number one pressing issue in our country aside from legal immigration, and our economy, of course. Um, but at the end of the day, this all starts from the top, right? It all starts from our government, then works the way down to senators, to mayors, you know. But at the end of the day, the big dogs or AKA the people who are in office, right, are definitely have he or she say on what goes on in this country. So I don't get why they can't stop it, especially when it's the number one oppressing issue.
I agree. I agree. And I think that fentanyl is definitely a huge, massive issue right now. It's coming in from all different parts of the world, being flown in by either by ship or by plane, and it's really just become kind of a very hot button topic, especially since the amount of overdoses have just been increasing year after year from fentanyl.
100%.
And
The
what do
number one,
you at your rehab center? I'm guessing you guys have stuff like Narcan on hand in case someone does OD and stuff like that.
correct,
Yeah.
correct.
Have you ever witnessed an
So
overdose at your facility at all?
yes, I have. I can't give a date, but there was a client who had went out and got bag, quote unquote bag, but which is fentanyl. And they had done a lethal injection to the arm right here,
Yeah.
and he we had found when we were doing our rounds around 6 o'clock in the morning, we had found him unconscious by his bed, and we had to administer 4 different cans of Narcan. And he did not wake up until the fifth one was administered. And when the paramedics were on scene, um, that was the only overdose I have seen in our facility. But I and name countless people who I've seen overdose on my face outside of this place on the streets, whether it was my best friend, whether it was somebody I knew, you know, I've
Yeah.
seen more overdoses than I would like to.
Damn.
And what do you think needs to happen in order to combat this problem? Do you think sanctions need to be placed on specific items that are coming into our country? Do you think that there needs to be more security? Do you think that the government is the one, the federal government is the one that needs to be involved in this, or do you think it's more of a state and local government issue that needs to happen at a smaller level?
Well, I do think in the large picture, it is a federal issue, right? Our borders are wide open, so who knows what's coming in our country? Really, we don't know because
Yeah,
one, we have people coming from mental institutions from different countries, right? Third world countries are coming in. Who knows what they're bringing with them, right? Um,
for sure.
Whether it's fentanyl or carfentanil or meth or cocaine or whatever the case is, right? I do think both do play roles, right? I think there needs to be uh, institutions placed in the state for whether it's border control, whether it is more research on addiction and mental health facilities, because I feel like like I said, it comes down to the big dogs, right? Who's controlling our country? They can legally get it out of our country if they wanted to. But clearly, I really do blame it on the a big blaming it on the Biden campaign for letting uh, all this drugs paraphernalia and fentanyl come into our country. I mean, it is unbelievable. The number one leading cause of death in the state of Florida from age 18 to 22 is fentanyl, an overdose. So I don't see how that isn't a pressing issue for the state as well with the country. So I would say both definitely do play a role, but obviously it starts from the top. You got to work your way down to the bottom.
Absolutely.
Outside of um drug addiction, what kind of other addictions do you see?
I see numerous addictions, whether it is a porn addiction or um usually like porn addictions are very common. Non-drug addictions would well, a lot of them are like porn addictions, per se. Uh and this sounds like really bad, but child pornography addictions, like people obviously not being in the right state of mind, so not knowing right from wrong. Um even though it's common sense, unfortunately, some people need more lenience and guidance than others. But that is the the true the true world of this mental health stuff. There's countless of addictions that are overlooked, and especially porn addiction is one of my biggest things. Is It's terrible for your brain. You you get used to seeing, um, for instance, say you like transgender porn, right? You get used to seeing that same, scenery. Once you get out of porn and you have a sexual relationship with somebody, your desires are going to only be what you watched. So, um, I mean, for instance, when I was a client, and I was in recovery, I had a roommate. His name, and he had an Oculus, um, and he was addicted to porn. He In front of us, he would watch porn all the time. He would be touching things with his VR, and yeah. So
Wow, that's absolutely crazy. And so, in terms of I know you mentioned you had patients with schizophrenia. What's typically the process you go about for treating them? Are schizophrenia patients people that were like once neets or hikikomori that would sit inside the room all day and just, you know, go constantly on the internet and just look at forums all day, and that's how they became paranoid? Or was it more of like an issue of just general isolationism where they didn't really have anyone to talk to, and so they just kind of developed it as time came on? Or is it like a genetic thing?
a lot of times people do inherit things. So yes, genetically, whether it's from their mother, father, or uncle. A lot of times, I would say it's due to drugs, as in some people get strung out, say, on meth, right? And they're up for 2 weeks, no sleep. And that alone creates paranoid delusions, whether you're schizophrenic or not. But over time, drastically keeping that same schedule, your brain starts to form a psychological disease. And in some cases, people get schizophrenia, and some people end up on the spectrum and get autism, right? But I would say a big issue is definitely through inheriting diseases, or inheriting through your dad or through your uncle, because 40 years ago or 20, 30 years ago, there wasn't pretty practical study on mental health. So who knows if their uncle or grandpa had schizophrenia? Who knows if their great grandpa? Things that we really may not grasp to reality. And I think that is definitely an pressing issue as well.
And do you keep those patients separate from? I'm guessing you keep them all in like their own section. Like narcotics is one section, schizophrenia patients have another, and alcoholics have another.
So for the most part, yes, we tend to pair clientele who are essentially dealing with the same kind of issue. So say we have two clients come in, both of them are dealing with schizophrenia, we will put them together. And then say we have another client come in with alcohol abuse disorder, we'll put them with someone who is kind of on the same boat as them. Not only so they can relate to them, just so it's more of a safe environment, right? We wouldn't want to pair someone with schizophrenia and then pair somebody with Asperger's, autism, because you never know how may they react under given any circumstance. Whether somebody takes their food, or whether they don't get to go to the gym, or whatever the case may be. You always want to prepare for the worst. And in this kind of field, you can never expect always expect the unexpected, because you never ever know what may happen.
Mm.
Um, but kind of to go back to what you had asked me previously, when we deal with mental health patients, we do like to do certain activities for them. So we like to either take them to the park, or take them to bowling, or take them to the beach, to kind of get out of their headspace. Because leading back to one of your points was isolation, right? If you isolate, time to yourself is very dangerous, especially when you're dealing with underlying mental health issues. Whether that person is suicidal, or whether they get uh, homicidal thoughts or tendencies. You always have to be prepared.
And how do friends and loved ones kind of play into the process?
So I would say your loved ones and family definitely play one of the most important roles um, in this process, let alone uh, feeling alone, not having anybody to reach out to, whether it's financially or emotionally. Having some kind of stability is very, very important. And in a sense of motivation, right? When it comes to recovery and mental health, you have to want it for yourself. If you do it for anybody else, whether it's a girlfriend, whether it's a boyfriend or a dog, it is never going to work, right? But when you have that support, whether it's from a family or friend, it is definitely a big help. You have someone to reach out to. You have someone that loves you. Especially when you're at rock bottom, you have nothing. Trust me, you have nothing. And so when you have a family member to reach out to or that friend to reach out to, it is the best feeling in the world.
What advice would you give um, a family member or a friend who, you know, they're they have a friend or family member who is suffering from addiction? How best can they support that person?
Um, well, I feel like there's a number of things, right? I would say the best way to deal with the situation is to learn to let go. In certain cases, there's going to be situations where, say, your uncle, or your cousin, or your mom won't get sober, or won't get over her mental health issue. You're going to have to accept the fact that you cannot change that. And you're going to have to come to terms with yourself that, hey, I can do something for somebody, but at the end of the day, are they going to do it for themselves? Um, and that definitely plays a big role, especially with having a family member in recovery, because you can intervention them. You can give them a place to go when it comes to treatment. You can get them a job when they get out of treatment. It's up to them to really figure it out. So my best advice is to love and learn to let go, and then also to believe in the other person, because it is possible to overcome addiction or mental health. It is possible. Although I'm not saying it's easy, it is possible. But definitely being there for them, having a good support system, as in picking up the phone when they need to, or just as little as texting them, hey, I hope you have a wonderful day. Little things like that really do help. Um, I do think little things like that will help your significant other or will help your family member when it comes to addiction and mental health for sure.
Now, you mentioned earlier that you were talking about a program called Kipu. Do you mind explaining that real quick?
Yes, so it is a network basically we use for admission when it comes to clientele. So when it comes to just basic information on their medical records or how old they are, their birth date, and a big reason why we use the HIPU format is for our nurse practitioner. So when it comes to handling medication, our nurse practitioner does all of that, and everything is done via computer or electronically. So about a year ago, we used to use paper. And when it came to writing doctor scripts or whatever, it was terrible. It was a headache. But Kipu got introduced to us, and it has been a help. Don't get me wrong, there is glitches along the way, but that's with every computer system. You're going to deal with the glitch here and there. That's normal, or I guess it's our new normal. Um, but I would say it's basically just a system for where we keep our clientele information and medical records and stuff like that.
I see. Would you say it's like secure? Is it like a secure thing, or do you think if someone was to try to hack it from the outside, would they be able to do it?
I would say it's pretty secure, but if somebody knows what they're doing, I'm sure they can get into it. You
So I
know,
could probably get into it if I wanted
I wouldn't want to say yes. No,
to. Okay.
maybe.
Now, in terms of the mental health patients, 'cause I kind of want to go back to the mental health patients that y'all have. Would you say it makes up a higher percentage of your patient base, or would you say that's mainly the narcotics and alcoholics group that makes up more of it?
Um, since we started offering dual diagnosis, it's really hard to give you an answer on that, but
Yeah.
genuinely, we probably have, ever since the new year, we have more mental health patients than addiction and
Mm.
people dealing with alcohol disorder, opiate disorder, or marijuana disorder, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
But definitely, probably since the new year, mental health, definitely.
Do you think COVID has played a role in any of this and helped in, making people, more unstable, so to speak?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
1,000,000%. I would say, let alone with COVID mandates or mask mandates, right? People, a lot of people were enforced to wear a mask. So when COVID was done, they got comfortable being in a mask. And this is for people dealing with mental health. They don't want to be seen with their face. So a lot of people still wear masks to this day to hide their identity. I would say another big thing was isolation. Us being stuck in our house and not being able to leave. And especially if we had COVID,
Yeah.
or if our family member had COVID, the country was very, very locked down on something it's just as simple as the flu. There was only 2,000 more cases of COVID deaths in 2019 than there was the flu deaths in 2019, which is absurd to me. But anyway, aside from the
Yeah.
point, I would say definitely COVID brung a big role into um, these diseases, and especially in addiction for sure. A lot of people being
Yeah.
stuck in their homes, getting high all day, and then when it was time to go back to work and it was time to do these things, they were stuck in such a blur, and it was all it was basically it was a big hoax. I
COVID.
think
Hold on, I'm so sorry. We have to say this.
Oh no!
We
Oh,
here at
here's Doug.
Pixels to Politics do not think COVID was a hoax. We have to say that, otherwise we get in trouble. However,
I mean, if you say we have to say it, then doesn't that kind of just invalidate the whole point of saying it to begin with?
no,
You're
no,
supposed to be genuine. You're supposed to
no.
be like, we here at Pixels to Politics do not credit any source that says that COVID is a hoax. Now we will continue with the fucking.
We get there. The only thing you are not allowed to say, even on the most free speech centered platforms, is that COVID is a hoax. So
okay,
unfortunately,
no,
that is all. There is a lot of
noted.
evidence that there was some lying about COVID. We're allowed to say that, and its effects, and the vaccine. However, we can't say COVID was a hoax. So it
It's
is
like
most
saying
unfortunate.
Sandy Hook never happened.
You can't say that
I
either.
understand.
Can't say
Did
that
you just
either.
search it
Going
up
through some of it.
afterwards? You just searched it up. Okay, listen.
I've already searched it up, and everyone else is welcome to. However, we here at Pixel to
At
Politics,
Pixels to
hosted on
Politics,
Spotify,
believe that Sandy Hook happened, and it was
cannot say
terrible.
that COVID was a hoax, and
Okay.
the views of our guests are of his own. So
Yeah, of course, of course. But yes, now back to the
sorry,
topic at
sorry.
hand.
Gotta
Now, how
cover
did
our
how
own
did
asses.
oh, of course. Yeah, how did COVID affect you personally though, if it at all?
Me personally, it took a toll on my academic career. I was able to log into my classes via telephone or via computer, so I could be anywhere in the world and be on my phone and be in class. So, say I wanted to go skip school and go to McDonald's, or skip school and go smoke, or whatever the case may be, right? I'm
Yeah.
able to do that from the comfort of my phone. So, how many students do you think, not just including me, were affected by that? Countless of students in my class, including me, were academically behind due to the convenience of being able to do schoolwork on your computer. But for me, it definitely took a big toll on my mental health. Uh, before post pre-COVID, I was very outgoing. I was able to make friends pretty easily. But when it came to COVID, nobody wanted to see each other. Nobody wanted to go outside. A lot of certain people were very superstitious about getting COVID, which I completely understand. Um, but my addiction definitely did um increased in COVID. I was by myself. I was in my room isolating. These things that us addicts have, habits to isolating. Not being around anybody, and especially with me being opiates, especially fentanyl. If I were to be alone in my room and nobody were to come upstairs, nobody would find me, So I definitely do think overdoses were increased during COVID as well, just due to the fact of funding of police, or paramedics. There was a shortage of, somebody called 911. The one of the operators told the person, "Hey, we can't have any, police come out right now. We're all busy." I forget the exact sentence, so don't quote me on that.
Yeah.
But essentially, 911 told him, "Hey, we're not going to be there in 30 minutes, for 30 minutes." So in that 30-minute span, just imagine what that person was going through mentally, and countless of other Americans were going through emotionally, financially. Some people weren't able to work. Thankfully, I was able to be employed during COVID. I definitely did take a big toll on my addiction and mental health for sure.
Wow.
Damn.
Now, in terms of alcoholics, like, is there a lot of people with DUIs there, or are they people that typically don't have DUIs on record, or is it something that you're
So to give you an average, probably about 7 out of 10 alcoholics that come through here are convicted of one or more DUIs for sure.
wow,
So it's very, very common.
wow, that's actually kind of a scary number because
It
because you
is.
think about a
It
DUI,
is.
like DUI can potentially be like a life-threatening incident where someone dies, and you think
100%.
7 out of 10 alcoholics that come through your door have at least one DUI on record. Uh, it almost makes me wonder if they were correct about prohibition back in 1929 before the Second World War, Like they banned alcohol, but no one wanted them to ban alcohol, obviously, and so they had to reinstate it back into the economy. And it's like why is it still allowed? Especially if you look at, I bet if you were to compare numbers between DUIs for people with under the influence of alcohol versus DUIs for people that smoke weed, it wouldn't even be much of a comparison, obviously. Like there are some things I think that should probably just be outlawed, and honestly, alcohol I think is just one of them. I don't know what your opinion on that is, or if you think it should just be allowed in certain instances or what.
So my opinion on that would probably be circumstantial, right? I think um it it really depends on the person, in my opinion. As in the average Joe, right? Say for me, I can't go to the
Yeah,
bar and get a drink and then just put that drink down, right? But another person may be able to go to the bar and get a drink and put it down, you know? But I definitely do think this generation, or I would say, society has kind of portrayed, if you don't drink or if you don't smoke or if you don't, you're a bitch or you're a pussy, So I think a lot of people, as we were younger, right? When we turned 21, oh, we want to go bar hop, like that's the big thing, right? As parents, let's go out to the bar and drink. So I think as kids, seeing it being so socially acceptable is definitely a major factor. So I definitely don't think it should be advertised on gas stations that are definitely right next to schools, I think that's definitely a big no. Like, you're gonna
yeah,
advertise alcohol and tobacco products right next to a school? Like, are you kidding me? I definitely don't think that's great. Um, but I do think it should probably come down to the state whether it's legal or not. But I mean, yeah, that's my opinion on it, though.
You said some
yeah. I mean,
people were there for marijuana addiction, right?
Correct. That is probably it's not as common as mental health or addiction, but it's definitely a thing for sure. I may not agree with it, but yeah.
Well, I mean, it just kind of, you always hear that like you can't be addicted to marijuana, so I thought that was interesting.
Doug, if you can be addicted to VR porn, you can be addicted to marijuana at this point.
What's so crazy is I think the addiction to porn like epidemic is so wild, and not only does it go completely understated, but for like the females in the OnlyFans sector, it's like promoted, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. So like
Oh yeah, no.
in a time where they're like trying to discourage uh like men from taking advantage of women, we have this like billion, maybe $1 trillion industry where their sole purpose is to just take advantage of pretty much young men mostly, um, and even teens, like teen boys, and it's totally acceptable and it's totally okay. Everyone just kind of like glosses over it, like, oh, no, it's fine. It's totally okay for um to encourage young men to get addicted to um OnlyFans women. Like, what the hell's going on, man? Like, no one
Yeah.
talks about it. No one says anything about it. And the VR setup thing is just gonna make things so much worse when it comes to this area. Like, it's you
Definitely.
almost want to laugh, but at the same time, like, it's also not funny. Like, it's getting really bad. So
Well, I'm gonna play devil's whore here, and I'm gonna start discussing essentially the reason why, and I think the reason why is because obviously one because of money, and two it sedates the male population, right? It reduces overall sexual activity from a certain percentage of the population, right? Because they already have porn at their fingertips, essentially on their phone or their computer or whatever. So there's no more reason for them to go outside and get involved in anything like that. So it does help to reduce population numbers. It also makes the money from quote unquote advertisers, and they also get donations from the girls. They get a percentage of that. They also get money from videos and things of that nature. And I think any politician that tries to remove or outlaw porn will ultimately be shut down or end up losing their position of wherever they're at as a politician, because there's lobbies that have bigwigs essentially that are involved in this industry that will ensure that the people, the politicians that are under their thumb, don't get rid of the thing that makes them money. You see what I mean? And I think that's more than likely the reason why it's still allowed, is because that these are, especially our state and local governments, aren't really doing a whole lot to really deal with it. You are seeing Florida kind of trying to deal with the social media issue by making it so that people that are 16 and up can have social media, but if you're under that number, you're not going to be able to have it in the state of Florida. They're trying to get that bill passed and set up. So it is kind of interesting to see how certain local governments are trying to stop the spread of all of this, and others just aren't getting involved with it for one reason or another.
Oh, definitely. I do agree with you what you said 100%.
Yeah.
I think when it comes to OnlyFans, I think it is to okay, let me backtrack. The
Yeah.
values, say 40 years ago, right? The values of a family or as a man, right, was to get married, was to go to college, was to have kids, and share your joy into this world. But I feel like nowadays, Generation Z, it's as soon as you get 18, create a OnlyFans. I do think it saves the government jobs, right? You can do this from the comfort at your own home, and you don't have to go to work at McDonald's. You can take pictures of yourself and videos of yourself and make dollars. I'm not saying it's not a good form of income. You can definitely make money, yes, but it completely destroys the morals and values of this country. Um, and especially if you have any self value for yourself or self respect, you put your foot down and shut that shit down.
For sure. I absolutely agree. I think it is an issue that needs to be dealt with, and it's causing a lot of problems, especially in the younger generation. Um, do you think social media has played a factor into some of the patients that you see at your facility, like in terms of, alcohol problems or, schizophrenia, like mental health or narcotics? Do you think some of those people that come in probably wouldn't be there if it wasn't for people on social media that they talk to or how they interact with others on social media, like on their phone or TikTok or Instagram and things like that? There you go.
So I do think it plays a major role when it comes to jealousy. A lot of people are very insecure, and I do think that stems from other people's successes and other people's riches instead of their own. A lot of people need to learn from their mistakes, not learning from others. Um,
Absolutely.
and I do, well, although I do think learning from others' mistakes is important, I do think learning for yourself and overcoming whatever it may be is very important. And social media definitely plays a significant role when it comes to being yourself. Whether it's you wanting to dye your hair blue and you're scared what other people may think of you when you post a picture of your hair being blue, you know, or whether it's um people are so judgmental and they know that you're an addict and that the chances of you overcoming addiction are very low. So a lot of people just get depressed and very insecure about what other people think about them, and that's definitely stems from social media, whether it's Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, and stuff like that. So yeah, and especially dating apps, man. And now Facebook has like it's kind of like the best way to describe it's kind of like Tinder, but it's like this dating thing on Facebook. So you can like swipe matches and people you like and stuff like that. So I just think a lot of these services that these apps offer are very detrimental to our society.
I think it like kind of dehumanizes the personal aspect of human interaction.
Most definitely.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And for me personally, I used to drink, I used to smoke and all that jazz. And I feel like once you get to a certain point, you get past that hurdle. And nowadays, I don't drink at all, I don't smoke at all, I don't even take any prescription medication at all. I run pretty much every single day, and I only drink water or milk or orange juice. And then for me that works. Like I feel I've never felt better pretty much, and I think that's a better option than resorting to any sort of opioids or band-aid solutions like nicotine and stuff like that. Obviously, other people are going to have differing opinions. Some people need it as a crutch, they feel, and some people just do it just out of habit or for social reasons, which is fine. But I feel that exercise will always be the best drug, in my opinion.
Definitely. And even with exercise, right? Backtracking to social media, these social media influencers who work out, right? A
Yeah,
lot of people get in their head thinking, "Oh, I can never get to that because look how big these people are. Look how much money they're making." They never can reconcile that, they're human. They're the same as you. The only
yeah,
difference is they have a following on social media and you don't, you know?
yeah. And you don't need a following on social media. The best advice you can say to someone that's looking to grow or looking to expand in any area in life is to always grow in silence. There's a great quote that says that trees do not grow loudly; they grow very silently. They grow in silence, and that is the best way to go about doing it. The louder you are, the less likely you are to be able to focus on your growth. So it's always best to just keep that to yourself. I see all these Facebook posts about, uh, you know, quotes or whatever on Facebook or people talking about life events and stuff. Just keep that to yourself. In all honesty, and like unless you're at like a family event or you're with friends and you just want to share it for the sake of keeping it saved to memories or whatever. Uh, it's best to always just when you're growing in life personally, like mentally or physically, just try to keep it to yourself. Try to keep those things personal and sacred.
Yeah. Social media itself has it's also, I think, kind of gone understated. It's only recently become put in the eye of our government in terms of addiction, but it's again,
Yep.
it's absolutely influenced minors to such an insane degree. I mean, it's affected our generation to a pretty serious degree, but the generation after, and this and the next one, like, man, I mean, they're pretty much on social media at the age of like 5 and 6, and they're already scrolling, and the effects that it's having is insane. I mean, the studies are only just now coming out and talking about how well, just straight addicted they are, and the ADHD it's causing, and just all the
The
different
brain
mental health
rot.
problems. Yeah, like it's so crazy. And again, it's another one of those. Not I don't always blame the government. I think it should be more up to individuals and society, like us as members of society, to kind of point these things out. And unfortunately, we don't. Again, the porn thing is not something people talk about. Social media addiction, people kind of talk about, but everyone's just like, it's fine. And it's just like, dude, it's so not fine, man. So not fine.
Eh, yeah, no, it's really
Oh,
not.
100%. I think just the attention span of others definitely social media. TikTok plays a significant role in the decrease of our attention span. Including me. I've
Yeah,
caught myself from time to time. Not being able to listen to somebody for a normal period of time without wanting to tell them to shut up or walk away because I don't quite frankly don't care because my attention span is you know
yeah.
and I've caught myself, so I can't imagine others who don't even acknowledge that problem.
Oh yeah, for sure. I can hardly even watch a movie nowadays, to be honest with you. It's because they all
Yeah,
seem
except Star
yeah
Wars.
yeah. I mean Star Wars is different. Star Wars is just bad. That's a totally different issue. But I mean like generic average shows where they start out with characters and I'm just like, I can't really get into this. I'd rather watch anime. That's kind of, or maybe that's just a preference on my part.
I was
But
gonna say The Acolyte is a well is a good example of that. I don't know if you guys have
yeah,
seen that new
yeah, The Acolyte
Star
is
Wars
it's probably the best
focus.
TV show ever made, if we're being honest.
Definitely.
It's listen, if you haven't watched the Star Wars Acolytes yet, you need to. It has so much good material in it. I can't
Watch
recommend it
episode
enough.
3.
Yeah. Yeah, episode 3 is, one of the pinnacles that everyone keeps talking about, where all the women gather around and scream, and it's excellent. There's a lot of CGI and amazing animations that get used. If
180 million,
anyone,
by the way.
there's gonna be some haters on the internet that will say it's bad. Don't listen to those people. You need to keep watching,
Oh my
or
goodness.
else you're a bigot. Sorry, but that's just how it is. Do any of your patients talk about Star Wars acolytes at all? Do they talk about the show?
Honestly, no.
Probably for the
That's
best.
that's a shame. That's surprising. I would thought at least one of them would talk about it.
Yeah,
I'm assuming you all have TVs over there, right? You have like a
we
rec
do.
room.
We have a main TV in our living room, and then we have a TV in all of our other rooms. So our bottom room contains 9 beds, and then upstairs contains 4 beds. Between all 6 rooms, we have we between all 6 rooms, we have TVs in every single room, including the living room.
Wow. And so and that's typically where everyone just like hangs out, right? They just just chill in the living room pretty
Correct.
much. Wow. Okay.
Correct.
So it's a pretty casual environment for the most part. It's not too serious. And so
Most part.
in terms of your patients, what do they typically watch on TV? If it's like a choice.
A lot of times, like Netflix, just depending on what streaming services are offered. Sometimes people we don't on our main TV downstairs in our living room, we have Amazon Prime, Disney Plus, Hulu, all the streaming services. But when it comes all the other TVs in the house, um, there isn't like a set streaming services. Like if the clients come in, say they have a Netflix account, they'll leave their Netflix account logged in. So I just say it depends on usually like what TV is running, but the main TV probably like Netflix and Netflix for sure.
Wow. Okay. I mean that makes
Or
sense. It
YouTube.
is the most popular streaming platform.
So outside the immigration stuff, what kind of changes would you like to see from the government to kind of help solve some of these issues
As in immigration, correct?
outside immigration?
Outside of immigration, sorry.
Yeah.
Outside of immigration, I would say some things that our government could put into place is definitely high fund research on mental health institutions, not just studying clinical, clinical, like clinical studies, right? I would say more things like an average guy comes in, right? Things like bringing a barber in, right, to teach barber lessons, or a tattoo artist to teach tattoo lessons, or whatever the case may be, right? Or a massage parlor that comes in and gives a massage, and kind of create more funded in funded options for them, like get free school, not free schooling, but kind of get them into schools, and definitely have programs for them to do outside of recovery, because probably a big underlying issue is a lot of people can get into treatment, get into a sober living, but it's what do I do after? It's people who are on controlled substances, are they going to find a doctor? Where are they going to find a doctor? Where are they going to stay? What career path are they going to choose? I think there should be um some kind of something in place where they're able to do those things, whether it is get a degree, or whether it's get a trade in school, or whether it's learn how to cut hair. Who cares what it is? Give them something that they can be motivated towards. And I think coming in a lot of people who are coming off the streets, right? These people aren't taking care of themselves. So when it comes time to take care of themselves, they don't know what to do. So, maybe having people who come in and who can and give them insight on, hygiene, um, maybe a dermatologist will come in, right? And people have cuts and icks all over their face from addiction or being on the streets, right? They come in. Wouldn't it be nice if they were given expensive products, or not expensive, but something nice for them to clean themselves and feel new, So I think those kind of activities would be really, really good for us addicts and people who are dealing with mental health issues. 'Cause a lot of people don't know what to do when they get out of treatment. A lot of people are stuck. And you know what they go back to do? Whether it's going back to jail, or whether it's getting back on the streets, because they have nothing going for them. And whether I don't know who should pay for it, that's up to the government to decide, right? But I think our tax money goes into places with things that I don't agree, right? So I think that as we the people should have a voice when it comes to things like that, right? The reason why our country is the land of the free is because of the rights that we obtained. So I think as us having free speech, we should be able to voice our opinion towards people who would listen. You know, um, yeah.
Wow.
Off the
Yeah, I
top
mean,
of my head, though, I can't really think of anything else, to be honest. I'm sure I could think of something, but as of right now, I can't.
okay.
Wow.
Doug, do you have any other questions you wanted to ask?
Um, no, I think that's everything. I think that was good.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, I feel the
You
same
know,
way.
I appreciate you guys. Been an honor to come on here and share a little bit about myself and my opinion on the world. I really do think, fellas, this addiction to mental health is something to be taken very seriously. Especially the overdoses that come with it, or long time effects. Some people may do drugs for 10 years and then come out, get sober, but have mental problems because they got themselves messed up. So I just think at the end of the day, we are human too, and we're as equal as you. So um I just think, treat people how you want to be treated. We're all human. I'm not different because I like to do fentanyl, or he likes to, play video games. Who cares? We're still human. The reason why we're humans is because we all do different stuff. That's the reason, you know, uh why certain people get along is because we do different things, or we do the same things, and we can get along. So anyways, I just wanted to say that this addiction and mental health needs to be taken seriously, more seriously than it's being taken.
for
I
sure.
agree.
And thanks for coming on and sharing your experiences
Absolutely.
and your career.
Oh yeah,
Of
it's been
course.
very insightful. It's important to hear perspectives from everyone, and
Do
I
you have?
think yeah. Go ahead,
Sorry,
Doug.
just before we close out, do you have any tips or maybe advice for people who want to do what you're doing?
Yes. I think that being able to share and really break down this disease with people that you can relate to, and is great. I think being able to um relate to somebody on a real note, it definitely hits home for that person. I do think that, you don't know, you won't like it till you try it. Give it a try. If you want to go help people, go ahead. I think it's a beautiful thing being able to show people that they're not alone. And especially when you're at rock bottom, you don't got anybody. So when that one person is there to pick you up and be nice to, it's all worth it in the end. And I think if you're dealing with an addiction or mental, you are not alone. You are not. There are countless and countless of people that are dealing with the exact same, maybe not the exact same thing down to every detail, but definitely going through something that is as serious as you are. So you are never alone. Never feel afraid to reach out, and never take for granted about your loved ones. The people who invest their time into you should never, ever, ever be taken for granted. Period. So yeah.
Wow. We appreciate you coming on, and it's been very
course.
insightful. You've answered a lot of questions that I wouldn't have been able to answer myself, and I think it really is an epidemic that needs to be dealt with. And I think, obviously, vote for whoever you feel is going to be best in the upcoming election, and hopefully things will change in the government for us to get this problem taken care of as Americans.